During his campaign trail, Donald Trump promised that he would go all in on crypto and make America the crypto capital of the world.
This afternoon, I'm laying out my plan to ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done.
So far, the Trump administration has been delivering on this promise. Within days of being in the office, he signed an executive order creating the President's Working Group on Digital Asset Markets. Very shortly after that, Trump signed an executive order to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a national crypto stockpile. Trump appointed several crypto-friendly members to his cabinet, including the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent.
Joe, I am a big proponent of the U.S. taking the worldwide lead in crypto,
as well as the Department of Commerce head, Howard Lutnick.
That's why I'm a fan of Bitcoin. It's going to go much higher.
And several others, including Paul Atkins at the Securities and Exchange Commission.
So it is a new day at the SEC, and we are picking up the gauntlet and the challenge that President Trump has laid down to make America, the crypto capital of the world, and to have U.S. technology basically running the world running on U.S. technologies.
So far, there has been a coordinated effort across all of the U.S. government to bring this technology to the forefront and to accelerate adoption. Just this past week, we had the SEC actually go ahead and announce the Project Crypto initiative, where they are working hand in hand with the CFTC to get regulations that clarify the different roles that these two agencies have in regulating the market. Also, the President's Digital Asset Working Group just released a report, and in it are some things that very few people are paying attention to. In this report, they don't really talk about Bitcoin or Ethereum. In fact, what they're talking about is the infrastructure that's going to bring this technology to the mainstream. The first thing that I saw in this report that I thought was really important is about cross-border payments and international capital flows. The US dollar plays a dominant role in global finance. Today, around 88% of all foreign exchange transactions involve the dollar at some point in the process. On top of that, over 70% of global trade finance is denominated in US dollars. This dominance gives the US extreme economic and security advantages. But right now, that position is potentially going to be challenged. We have initiatives like the BRICS nations that are trying to find a way to circumvent the use and reliance on the US dollar. We also have technological changes that are at least challenging the systems that are in place to distribute this dominance of the US dollar. Today's international payment system relies on what's called a correspondent banking network, where payments travel across multiple institutions, take days to settle, and often incur high fees in that process. For smaller banks, or even for people that are just trying to send remittances overseas, this process can be slow, it's not very clear what's actually happening in the background, and it's extremely costly. In a world where value can flow at the same speed as information, which is the speed of light, this feels a little bit outdated. And this is where stablecoins come in. Stablecoins offer instant, borderless payments, and it offers them at a much lower cost. Stablecoins that represent dollars and that are backed by U.S. treasuries also provide more demand for U.S. treasuries and the U.S. dollar on a global scale. And this could be part of why we've seen the United States government rush to pass legislation such as the Genius Act at a time when demand for U.S. treasuries has been dwindling. One of the most important developments that people are not paying attention to regarding stablecoins is the company Ripple and their stablecoin RLUSD. Ripple has, for over a decade, been working with international banks to improve the correspondent banking system. Ripple offers both a messaging platform as well as a way to settle these payments across borders more efficiently. So far, Ripple has incurred massive legal, regulatory, and even some technological challenges that prevent them from being able to properly utilize the settlement side of the services that they would like to offer. The United States has already rushed forward the passing of the stablecoin legislation, creating a much more clear path for firms to issue stablecoins and to maintain them in the bounds of the law. Funny enough, Ripple actually just applied for a federal banking charter, putting the company in a very unique position to be able to issue and manage its stablecoin with clear regulatory standards. While stablecoins address how money moves, there's another development taking place around how assets are owned and traded. Today, most traditional assets like stocks and bonds don't settle instantly. When you make a trade, there's usually a day or so before that transaction actually finalizes. And this process is called T+1 settlement, with the +1 meaning that it takes 1 day for these assets to settle. That delay creates friction in the system, and it also prevents there from being liquidity at times when it may be necessary. But what if you tokenize assets like government bonds, real estate, or even commodities? And then you could trade them globally 24/7 and with instant settlement. This phenomenon, called real-world asset tokenization, or you'll see abbreviated as RWAs, is actually highlighted in this report from the White House. And funny enough, they actually demonstrate this using a protocol that you may have heard of called Ondo Finance, who is actually leading the charge in this tokenization of real-world assets. For example, Ondo has a tokenized treasury fund where investors can come in and buy these digital shares of treasuries and actually earn yield from those treasuries on chain, and can now trade them as they please 24/7 on a blockchain. The White House isn't just talking about some little tech upgrade. This is a complete rewiring of how capital markets infrastructure works. And it's not just Ondo that's doing this. You've also seen BlackRock starting to tokenize funds and many others as well. But here's the thing. A lot of this is going to be extremely fragmented or even just inefficient if we don't have a way to get these particular blockchains to actually talk to one another and to understand information from the outside world. Blockchains are secure and reliable and offer 24/7 trading, but they're cut off from the rest of the world by design. So when you're using a blockchain, it doesn't really know anything about the outside world, whether that's the price of an asset that exists on a different blockchain or even in a traditional legacy system. Or it could be that you're trying to get information into a smart contract that you want to use on that blockchain, but it doesn't have the information that it needs to be smart. For instance, if you wanted to allow someone to take a collateralized loan based upon the assets that they have in a normal banking system, well, that smart contract would need to have a way to actually get information about the assets that this person owns in their traditional bank account. And this is where decentralized oracles come in. They are essentially the data layer of Web3. Oracles bring verified information from the real world or even from other blockchains and allow them to be used on the blockchain of your choice. Think of these oracles as trustworthy messengers. And without them, trading real world assets on a siloed blockchain wouldn't be very secure or even accurate. Without oracles, smart contracts wouldn't be able to settle based upon things that are happening off chain. But with them, you can do that. And that opens up an entirely new world of finance. In this report, the White House designates decentralized oracles as critical infrastructure in distributed ledger technology networks. And in doing this, they used a little graphic from a project that you may have heard of called Chainlink. Chainlink and decentralized oracles are critical to the future of decentralized finance, real-world asset tokenization, and even the use of stablecoins and cross-border payments flows. And the White House just acknowledged it themselves. Now, Chainlink isn't just a decentralized oracle network. They've also built out what's called the Cross-Chain Interoperability Protocol, or CCIP. And this allows blockchain networks to communicate with one another and traditional systems to communicate with blockchain systems as well. In a world where you have real-world assets on one blockchain and these stablecoins on another, interoperability is key. And Chainlink and the CCIP is providing just that. While everyone's focused on what's happening on the charts in the short term, the White House just gave us the long-term game plan. And as they did that, they specifically showed us what that world could look like, including graphics from Chainlink and even Ondo Finance. We know that the White House is focused on stablecoins, not only for their use in international payments, but also in increasing demand for treasuries. We also now know that the White House is highlighting the importance of real-world asset tokenization. And what I think is one of the most underappreciated things that the White House has acknowledged is the need for decentralized oracles and tying all of this together. Now, I don't want this to be about hype, but at the end of the day, when is the last time we've seen the United States government take such quick, coordinated action to push for the adoption of a nascent technology? Some people are even wondering what is really going on here and are questioning if there may be some crisis that's brewing behind the scenes. Some have specifically pointed out the Japanese carry trade being unwound and how that could create a liquidity crisis that would bring the entire system to a halt. But what do you think? Why do you think the United States government is moving so fast to get this legislation in place and provide a regulatory framework for digital assets? We are discussing the macroeconomic landscape and how this technology is affecting that together in my paid community. So if you're interested in joining that conversation, please feel free to check that out in the link in the description. If it's your first time here, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.